From vision to reality, every great restoration begins with a dream. Whether it's a museum-quality factory stock classic or a wild custom muscle machine, the journey from rusty project to gleaming showpiece is an involved process, one that Muscle Car Restorations, MCR, has perfected over decades in the business. This video documents the process of MCR's founder, John Balow, fulfilling a lifelong dream of restoring a 1970 Plymouth Cuda exactly as he envisioned in his youth. This restoration project is documented step by step and offers a window into MCR's full restoration process, a process defined by technical excellence, meticulous attention to detail, and a commitment to making each customer's automotive dream a reality. By following along this restoration journey, you'll see how MCR turns ideas into rolling works of art and why their in-house capabilities and customer-focused approach set them apart in the world of classic car restoration. Planning the restoration roadmap. Before a single bolt is turned, proper planning and customer onboarding set the stage for success. MCR believes that dreams are the motivator, but details are the roadmap to the final destination, so they begin every project by working closely with the owner to capture the vision in detail. Each customer fills out a comprehensive customer specification guide covering literally every aspect of the car, an extensive questionnaire that defines the restoration scope and goals. This includes the desired restoration level, for example, a drivable driver restoration versus a concours show car, originality versus modifications, and choices for every system. Body and sheet metal preferences, paint color and finish, engine and drivetrain specs, interior materials, trim, electronics, and more. By writing down all these desires and decisions up front, MCR ensures that every specialist on the team is on the same page and working toward the same end goal. Equally important, the MCR staff draws on experience from hundreds of past projects to guide customers through any tough choices. They'll explain how each decision impacts the final result, helping refine the plan until the exact destination is known. At MCR, no two dream cars are alike, so this collaborative planning covers everything from stock versus custom build style to practical considerations like whether the owner intends to drive the car regularly or preserve it as a showpiece. In our 1970 Cuda example, John had to decide if his dream car would be factory correct or upgraded with modern touches, and whether it should be a cruiser or competition quality show car. Once these major decisions were made and the vision was crystal clear, even rendered visually, more on that shortly, the MCR team created a detailed roadmap for the project. With the destination defined and a plan in hand, the exciting journey could truly begin. Design and visualization, rendering the dream. Even with a clear concept on paper, it can be hard for an owner to imagine exactly how the finished car will look. That's why MCR offers in-house design and rendering services to bring the dream into focus. Their design team can produce a full-color digital rendering of the vehicle, incorporating the chosen paint color, graphics, wheels, stance, and other options. This is an invaluable step, especially if the build involves custom or personalized elements. As MCR notes, dreams aren't always in razor-sharp focus. You'll know it's right when you see it, but by then it may be too late. A rendering lets you see the finished car first and confidently say, "Build that." It becomes a unifying visual guide for the whole team. In our 1970 Cuda example, even though John elected for a factory stock restoration, MCR still created a detailed rendering of the 70 Cuda in the exact FK5 deep burnt orange paint and options John remembered from decades ago. This extra step ensured everyone could literally picture the goal. Whether a client's dream is a Concours original time capsule or a radical pro touring Restomod, MCR's ability to translate ideas into images helps confirm the plan before any physical work begins. It's one more way MCR aligns the outcome with the owner's vision from the start. Assessment, documentation, and complete disassembly. With planning done, the actual restoration kicks off with a thorough evaluation and disassembly of the vehicle. The first order of business is a complete teardown. Every last nut, bolt, and clip is removed from the car, and the body is stripped bare. This step is far more involved than a typical repair job. The MCR team not only pulls apart every system and component, but also documents and organizes everything methodically. As each piece comes off, it's photographed, labeled, bagged, and stored on racks or a dedicated parts cart reserved exclusively for that project. All the hardware, down to the smallest screw or specialty clip, is tagged and grouped by assembly so that reinstallation will be a no-guesswork process. Why such obsession with documentation? Many of the cars MCR restores are rare and carry valuable original parts that might be impossible to replace if lost or damaged. Properly identifying, preserving, and restoring these original pieces can be crucial to the car's value and authenticity. MCR's philosophy is to restore and reuse original components whenever practical, both to preserve originality and because older original parts can sometimes be higher quality than modern reproductions. Of course, some parts will inevitably need replacement due to wear or damage. Over its 30-plus year history, MCR has developed an expert network for sourcing those scarce pieces. They know which items are readily available as quality reproductions and which must be hunted down through specialized suppliers or salvaged from donor cars. Early in the disassembly phase, the team compiles a comprehensive list of needed parts and begins ordering them so that new components arrive in time, avoiding delays later in the build. This logistical planning, getting parts on hand as needed, keeps the project running smoothly on schedule. Crucially, initial disassembly also allows MCR's craftsmen to evaluate the car's true condition. Often what lies beneath old paint in previous restorations can be eye-opening. A classic car that looks merely a bit worn might hide serious structural issues or past collision damage patched with creative and subpar methods. In fact, MCR finds that a good percentage of cars coming into the shop have been restored before, perhaps back in the 1980s or 90s, and while that work preserved the car, it can mask improper repairs. It's not uncommon to strip off paint and filler and discover things like pop-riveted sheet metal, crude welded patches, fiberglass cloth, or even chicken wire and newspaper used as backers under body filler from decades past. On our example Cuda, once the body was chemically stripped to bare metal, extensive rust was revealed in areas that had looked solid, and some large filler patches concealed earlier repairs of questionable quality. Far from being discouraged by such surprises, MCR's team expects them. They've truly seen it all in terms of automotive archaeology under the paint. This is where their experience shines. They know how to distinguish what's salvageable, what needs refabrication, and what new panels to order after fully assessing the naked body shell. By the end of the disassembly and assessment stage, a plan is in place for the next critical phase, rebuilding the vehicle's foundation from the metal up. If the paint is the glamour of a restoration, metalwork is the unseen foundation that makes everything possible. MCR emphasizes that a truly great restoration starts with structurally sound, accurately shaped metal, essentially returning the car to the way it was, or better than, when it rolled out of the factory decades ago. While casual enthusiasts might think the paint job is the hardest part, insiders know that flawless paint requires flawless bodywork underneath, and in turn, flawless bodywork rests on an exacting metalwork stage. MCR takes metal repair to a level deeper than most. Rather than slathering on fillers to cover imperfections, a practice all too common in past restorations, the goal is a body shell that looks as straight, solid, and clean as it did when brand new, before any cosmetic filler or paint is applied. This means welding up holes, fixing dents the right way, and eliminating rusted sections with proper metal patching so that the underlying structure is as good as new, not just cosmetically hidden. The metal restoration process begins with ensuring the car's frame and unibody are straight. Especially on older unibody muscle cars, which lack a full frame, major surgery like replacing floor pans, roof sections, or quarter panels can affect overall alignment if not braced correctly. MCR addresses this by first sending the bare shell to a trusted frame shop for precise measurement, just as one would do with a collision-damaged vehicle. If any dimensions are off from factory specs, the frame experts carefully pull and realign the body until it's back to blueprint spec. Starting with a square, true foundation is non-negotiable. There's no point in preserving misaligned dimensions, as MCR notes, and the only way to know is by accurate measurement. Once the body is confirmed straight, MCR literally welds the body to a heavy steel frame table in their shop. Custom metal jigs and braces, a halo of support bars, are welded inside and around the shell to lock every reference point in position. This step is crucial. As rusted portions are cut out and new metal sections installed, nothing can shift or sag out of alignment. It's a tailored approach for each car. MCR fabricates bracing specific to the areas being repaired, ensuring the remaining structure stays rigid and aligned. Only after this extensive preparation do they proceed to remove and replace the compromised metal. MCR's metal craftsmen then tackle the repairs using whatever method best suits each area. In some cases, entire body panels are replaced with high-quality reproductions. For instance, a full trunk pan or a roof skin can be removed, and a new one spot welded in just like the factory did. In other areas, a partial patch is wiser. This preserves more of the car's original sheet metal and factory seams. MCR always uses butt welding techniques for these splices. Overlapping joints are avoided. The new piece is welded edge to edge to the old metal, and the welds are ground flush, yielding a virtually undetectable seam once finished. Their standard is that a repaired panel should require only a skim of filler, if any, before paint, essentially indistinguishable from a new original panel. In cases where no reproduction part exists, or when damage is very localized, MCR will hand fabricate a patch from scratch, forming sheet metal with traditional metal shaping tools to recreate small sections, complex curves, or multi-layered brackets as needed. There is an artistry in this craft. Patches aren't just flat plates, but shaped by shrinking, stretching, and rolling steel until it fits the car exactly, then welded in seamlessly. Throughout the metalwork phase, MCR leverages both cutting-edge equipment and old-school skill. For example, they use a state-of-the-art spot welding system to replicate the appearance and strength of factory spot welds on new panel installations. This not only makes the finished product look authentically factory-made, but it's also more efficient and produces less heat distortion than manual plug welding each spot. Meanwhile, repaired areas like vintage leaded seams, such as where a roof meets a quarter panel, get modern improvements. The car is structurally better than new. In fact, many of MCR's completed builds have chassis and body integrity superior to original factory cars, thanks to more precise assembly and improved materials, as we'll see later. Before moving on, MCR double-checks the metal team's work by returning the welded, braced shell to the frame alignment shop for a post-repair measurement. This ensures that despite all the surgery, the body remains perfectly within spec. It's this obsessive attention to the foundation that pays off down the line. Doors, hood, and trunk will fit squarely, glass will seal properly, and the car will track true on the road. With the heavy metal lifting done, the project shifts to refining the surface and preparing for the spotlight moment everyone waits for: the paint. Perfecting every curve, intensive bodywork. After metal repairs, the car's sheet metal might be solid and new, but it isn't yet perfect. Subtle ripples, tiny dings, or panel fit imperfections are almost inevitable, especially when mating aftermarket panels to a decades-old body. That's where expert bodywork comes in. MCR replaces the old lead with high-quality metal-filled filler, Duraglass, after fully welding the seam, achieving the same solid fill as lead but with greater durability. The phase dedicated to achieving arrow-straight, mirror-smooth surfaces that will make the paint finish truly shine. MCR treats bodywork as a precision art form, not to be confused with the quick filler and sand techniques of collision repair shops. In fact, they note that the term bodywork can be misleading because people might imagine Bondo slathered over shoddy metal. That's not at all what is done at MCR. Instead, since the metal understructure has already been fixed correctly, bodywork is used only to finesse the surface to perfection, never to hide major flaws. The process begins as soon as metal fabrication is complete. All new metal and any existing panels are thoroughly sanded, often by hand with DA sanders, to remove factory E-coating or surface rust and to give tooth for primers. MCR immediately applies a high-quality epoxy primer over the bare metal as a protective base coat. This sealant primer ensures no new rust forms and provides a uniform substrate for the layers of bodywork to come. The epoxy is allowed to cure fully, often for a week or more, to stabilize. Then the long and meticulous dance of block sanding begins. The team block sands the entire prime body with coarse grits to reveal any high or low spots in the metalwork. They will apply a misting of guide coat, a contrasting spray paint or powder, on panels and sand again. The guide coat quickly exposes even the slightest waves or dimples as it remains in low areas or is scuffed off of high areas. Any imperfections that the sanding uncovers are addressed at this stage. Minor low spots might be hand massaged out if accessible, but generally this is where skim coating happens. The entire car gets a thin coat of professional body filler spread over all exterior surfaces. Unlike heavy filler Bondo patches of old, a skim coat is a thin veil applied even over good metal, then almost entirely sanded off. It serves to fill microscopic depressions and ensure absolute flatness. MCR technicians laboriously block sand the filler off, panel by panel, until most of it ends up on the floor as dust, and only the slightest amount remains on the car to level things out. They even tape off every delicate bodyline and character crease before skim coating, working above and below each line separately to keep those edges crisp and perfectly defined. This intensive surfacing work is one of the most labor-consuming parts of the entire restoration, rivaled only by the earlier metalwork. But it's absolutely critical. The reward for all that effort is when you sight down the length of the finished car and see glass-like reflections with not a ripple or wave in sight. As MCR likes to say, flawless paint is impossible without flawless prep, and they take whatever time is needed to get it flawless. Multiple rounds of primer and sanding are typically involved. After initial epoxy and body filler work, MCR sprays high-build primer surfacers. For example, 3 coats of PPG's high-build primer were used on the 70 Cuda, and lets them cure thoroughly. These thick primers are then block sanded with finer grits, down to 320 grit or more, to ensure even the primer coat is smooth and free of texture or orange peel. Guide coats continue to be used at every stage for validation. Another often overlooked aspect is panel fitment during bodywork. MCR doesn't wait until after paint to find out if panels align. They temporarily install all the major panels in trim while the car is still in primer. Doors are hung and adjusted, the hood and trunk are fitted, glass is dry fitted, chrome trim and even bumpers might be mocked up. By doing a full trial assembly at this stage, the team can verify that every piece fits perfectly. Gaps are consistent, doors and trunk close properly, moldings line up. Each department manager, metal, paint, assembly, etc., inspects the mocked-up car with fresh eyes to catch any alignment issues or missing hardware before proceeding. Any tweaks needed are far easier to do now than after final paint. This step also allows MCR to test things like weather stripping and even perform a water leak test on the body. They will actually simulate rain or use a water hose to ensure the windshield, rear window, and seals don't leak, all while the interior is still out and nothing can be damaged. Once satisfied that the body is laser straight and every piece fits as it should, the team gives the primed shell a final cleansing and shoots a last coat of urethane sealer over it. The sealer locks everything down and provides a clean, uniform surface ready for the star of the show, the color paint. Show quality paint finish. At long last, the paint stage arrives, the moment when the car's personality truly comes to life in color and shine. In our 1970 Cuda story, everything had led up to this exciting phase where the burnt orange metallic paint would be laid down. While modern paints and techniques have evolved since the muscle car era, the fundamentals of a great paint job remain the same. MCR attributes paint's success to a few key factors: skill, the right materials, and unwavering attention to process. First is having well-trained, experienced painters who know how to expertly apply color and clear coat on every surface, from broad body panels to tight corners. There is simply no substitute for the human touch in this craft. MCR's painters use top-tier SATA spray guns to ensure precise, even atomization of the paint. But it's their practiced hand and eye that achieve that smooth mirror finish across varying angles and curves. Secondly, using high-quality paint materials and sticking to a proven paint system is crucial. MCR has a decades-long relationship with PPG, a leading automotive paint manufacturer, and they use PPG products exclusively from the first primer to the final clear coat. All the primers, sealers, base color, and clear are chemically engineered to work together as a system, and MCR follows the manufacturer's technical guidelines to the letter for mixing, flash times, curing, and more. By not mixing and matching product lines, they ensure maximum adhesion, durability, and gloss. This also helps in matching original colors. Environmental regulations have changed paint formulas over the years, so MCR leverages PPG's advanced mixing system and their local paint distributors' expertise to recreate classic 1960s-70s hues with modern eco-compliant paints. In John's case, the target was FK5 Deep Burnt Orange Metallic, a factory 1970 Plymouth color. Thanks to PPG's library of formulas and some testing, MCR could achieve the precise shade John remembered, despite today's stricter VOC rules. Another practice that sets MCR's paint process apart is the use of spray-out test panels, often called speed shapes. Before committing the color to the actual car, the painters will spray the chosen color onto three-dimensional sample panels and clear coat them. These curved samples mimic the way paint lays on a car's contours and allow the team and the owner to inspect the color under various lighting angles. Tiny differences in metallic flop or color tone can show up on a curved panel that wouldn't on a flat paint chip or paper sample. By evaluating these test panels, MCR ensures the color is exactly right. In John's case, verifying that the metallic orange had the correct warmth and sparkle he envisioned. It's this level of thoroughness that guarantees there are no unhappy surprises when the car itself is painted. When the big day comes, the body is meticulously cleaned, masked, and moved into MCR's modern downdraft spray booth. Here, the expert painter lays down the base color coats evenly, followed by multiple coats of high-quality clear. MCR's painter's experience really shows in avoiding common pitfalls like runs, dry spots, or uneven metallic distribution. The finish straight out of the gun is already stunning. For many restorations, additional finishing steps are taken after the paint cures to achieve an even higher level of gloss and smoothness. Depending on the owner's preference, MCR can leave the final clear coat as sprayed to mimic a factory original finish, which often had a slight texture or orange peel like new cars did off the assembly line. Or they can perform a cut and buff process to create a show car mirror shine. Cutting and buffing involves wet sanding the clear coat with fine grit paper to eliminate any texture, then machine polishing it through a series of compounds to a glass-smooth gloss. This Cuda's owner hadn't yet decided which route to take at the time of painting, so MCR applied extra clear coats to allow for a potential cut and buff without risk. In high-end restorations, it's common to add that extra material so that if a concourse finish is desired, there's plenty of clear layer to safely sand. The results speak for themselves. Under the lights, the rich burnt orange paint on the Cuda had incredible depth and clarity, a testament to MCR's paint team following every best practice and using their honed talent. Mechanical mastery, rebuilding the heart and chassis. While the body and paint might steal the spotlight, an MCR restoration also addresses every mechanical component so that the car drives as good as it looks. In parallel with the body and paint work, MCR's technicians overhaul the engine, drivetrain, suspension, brakes, and more to return the car to like new or better condition. By the time assembly starts, the engine has been completely rebuilt and tested, even broken in. The transmission and rear end are restored to factory specs, and every suspension component is like new. In other words, the chassis and running gear are fully refurbished to ensure reliability, safety, and performance. On many projects, MCR will rebuild the original matching numbers engine to factory specifications, unless the customer has requested performance upgrades or a crate engine swap. All engine machining, balancing, and assembly is done to exacting standards. In fact, MCR often gives the rebuilt engine an initial run on an engine dyno, a standalone engine test bench, before installation. This allows proper camshaft break-in and a base tune of the carburetor or fuel injection on a fresh engine without any load. For John's 340 cubic inch small block V8, even though it was a relatively fresh stock rebuild when he bought the car, the team still went through it to double-check everything and ensure it met their quality standards. MCR applies the same care to transmissions and differentials. The 4-speed manual gearbox and the 8.75-inch Sure Grip rear axle on this Cuda were disassembled, inspected, and rebuilt with new bearings, seals, and any needed hard parts to return them to smooth like new operation. Suspension systems, from control arms and leaf springs to bushings and shocks, were all renewed or replaced, then refinished. Many metal parts like the K-frame engine cradle, control arms, rear axle housing, etc., were powder-coated for superior durability. MCR even updated the undercarriage finishes beyond factory for a better-than-new result. For example, John planned to drive his restored Cuda regularly, so MCR's team powder-coated many underside components and applied modern corrosion protection so that road grime would clean off easily and rust would never creep in. Braking and steering systems are likewise modernized only as far as the owner wants. In this case, John chose to keep the factory-style manual drum brakes all around to maintain the authentic 1970 feel. MCR respected this, simply rebuilding the drums with new shoes, cylinders, and lines so they performed optimally. After all, when new and correctly set up, those drum brakes worked fine in their day. He did opt for power steering and a factory-style air conditioning system, options that the MCR team seamlessly integrated as if the car came that way originally. One of the joys of a custom restoration is that you can mix and match any factory options or upgrades you want, and MCR is happy to accommodate such requests. Want a high-performance rear axle ratio or an upgraded suspension on your otherwise stock muscle car? They can do that. Prefer fuel injection for reliability, but a stock look externally? Done. In short, every mechanical component is tailored to the owner's driving goals, then rebuilt or replaced so that it functions like a brand new car. Interior restoration and customization. Moving inward, interior restoration is another area where MCR's comprehensive capabilities shine. Bringing an old car's cabin back to life involves a blend of factory-correct restoration and, if desired, custom tailoring to the owner's preferences. The interior assembly is far more than just screwing in new seat covers and carpet. Often, each subassembly inside the car goes through its own mini restoration. Take the seats, for example. In John's 70 Cuda, the bucket seats initially looked like they were total trash, with torn upholstery and broken down foam. No matter, MCR completely rebuilds seats from the frame up. Generally, only the steel seat frames and springs are saved, and even those are repaired as needed, while all soft parts are renewed. The frames get sandblasted and powder-coated to better-than-new condition, new dense foam cushions are installed, and finally fresh covers. In John's case, he upgraded to premium black leather upholstery instead of the standard vinyl, are stretched and hog-ringed in place. The result is seats that look, feel, and even smell brand new, often more sumptuous than the originals ever did, yet retaining the correct style and patterns. The same approach goes for other soft trim. Headliner, door panels, carpeting, and dash pads are typically replaced with high-quality reproductions, unless the originals are in exceptionally good and desired condition. Often it's more economical and aesthetically pleasing to use new interior components, because an old vinyl door panel that looked okay would likely seem shabby next to freshly restored seats and trim. MCR guides owners on these choices, but usually recommends full replacement of wear-prone items so that the entire interior presents uniformly fresh. In almost all cases, the cost of trying to rehabilitate 50-year-old vinyl or foam exceeds the cost of new parts, and the end result is better with new materials. Some interior pieces are not reproduced or might be original to the car and worth keeping. For instance, certain plastic trim panels, dashboard components, or consoles. MCR will restore those parts using special techniques. Plastic panels can be cleaned, re-dyed, or repainted with factory color coatings, and metal trim can be re-chromed or polished. In our Cuda's restoration, the dash frame was repainted in the correct textured black, and a new dash pad was sourced. Dash pads often crack from sun exposure, and MCR has sources to get brand new replacements or have an original refurbished. The gauge cluster was sent out to specialty instrument experts to be refaced and calibrated, ensuring all gauges work and look as they did when new. MCR handled reassembly of the dash and all its electrical connections, installing the restored heater box, switches, wiring harness, and so on. Notably, they incorporate modern improvements discreetly. For example, applying Dynamat-style sound deadener and insulation throughout the interior before installing carpet and trim, so the car rides quieter and cooler than the original did. These upgrades are done subtly to enhance comfort without altering the stock appearance. Even small factory touches are replicated. New plastic sheeting, vapor barriers, were placed behind the door panels, just as the factory did to protect the interior from moisture. The overall goal is an interior that feels like stepping back in time. Slide into the finished black bucket seats of this Cuda, and you'd swear you were in a showroom in 1970. The seating is firm, the upholstery smells of new leather, and every gauge and knob looks factory fresh and functions flawlessly. Of course, if an owner desires a custom interior, MCR can do that too. They emphasize that custom options are limited only by imagination. In John's case, he kept things stock aside from the leather upgrade, but MCR was fully capable of creating anything from bespoke modern bucket seats to a custom center console, audio system, or even custom-stitched door panels had he wanted it. For some clients, MCR has built one-off dashes with updated gauges or integrated modern amenities, like air conditioning and Bluetooth audio, seamlessly into a classic interior. Whether stock or custom, the focus is always on quality and durability, using the best materials and craftsmanship so that the interior not only looks amazing, but can be enjoyed for years of driving. When the interior restoration is complete, the car's cabin is as inviting as it was the day it left the factory, often even better. It's the kind of finish where opening the door greets you with that new car smell again, completing the transformation back to a new vehicle. The final assembly, bringing it all together. With the paint cured and all subsystems, chassis, powertrain, interior, trim, restored or prepared, the project enters its most exciting phase, reassembly. This is when the car is literally reborn, as all the separate parts come back together into a complete automobile. MCR approaches final assembly with the same thoroughness as every prior step, following a careful plan to avoid any damage to the freshly painted body and to ensure everything fits and functions perfectly. The team often describes this stage as the dream finally becoming reality. After months or years of seeing the car in pieces, it is immensely satisfying for both the builders and the owner to watch it take shape as a fully finished machine. Reassembly typically begins from the ground up. MCR will first build a rolling chassis, installing the restored suspension components, springs, control arms, brakes, wheels, tires, and steering gear onto the painted body shell to get it back on its wheels. In many cases, especially with front-engine classic cars, they mount the engine and transmission at this stage as well, effectively marrying the drivetrain with the chassis. For example, on Moper unibody cars like the Cuda, MCR prefers to install the entire front suspension and engine trans as one unit from underneath. They assemble the engine, transmission, K-member, engine cradle, front suspension arms, and even front brakes together outside the car, then carefully lift the body and lower it onto this assembly, bolting it in from below. This method drastically reduces the risk of scratching the painted engine bay or body compared to lowering the engine in from above with a hoist. On cars where bottom install isn't feasible, they will still take extreme care if dropping the engine in from the top, often using extra protection and multiple spotters to avoid any contact with the paint. The Cuda's small block engine and attached transmission slipped in from below with ease. MCR notes that only the massive 426 Hemi engines typically require a top-down install due to their width, but that wasn't an issue here. As assembly continues, MCR follows a layered approach rather than a strictly system-by-system approach. In practice, this means they install components in the order that provides the best access and minimizes risk to finished areas. For instance, it makes sense to put the brake lines, fuel lines, master cylinder, wiper motor, and underhood wiring harnesses in place before the engine or fenders go on, so that the technicians have plenty of room to work and tighten fittings without leaning over freshly painted fenders. Likewise, inside the car, something like the heater AC box is bolted under the dash before the dashboard assembly is installed, because it's much easier to do when the dash is out of the way. MCR's seasoned assembly techs know all these sequences by heart and also refer to the photo documentation and notes they took during disassembly to route every wire and hose exactly as original. The idea is to avoid having to undo or redo work later. Everything is done in the optimal order. Larger exterior panels like the doors, trunk lid, hood, and glass are usually installed nearer to the end of assembly, but not the very last. Importantly, MCR fits these before the interior is fully completed, so they can water test the car and adjust seals without risking the finished interior. In our Cuda's case, once the drivetrain and basic wiring were in, the team hung the doors, hood, and deck lid, and installed all new weather strips. They then simulated heavy rain with a water hose to check for any leaks around the glass, cowl, and seals. Only after verifying the cabin was watertight did they proceed to install the final interior pieces like carpeting, door panels, and seats, confident that no surprise leaks would ruin those new materials. Throughout assembly, extreme care and accuracy are the watchwords. The car's fresh paint is polished and gleaming, so every tool is used cautiously and every fastener is torqued correctly the first time. Nobody wants a slip of a wrench to mar a fender now. MCR's technicians double-check the parts against the inventory lists and photos to ensure the correct original fasteners and clips go back in the proper locations. The photo archive from disassembly is an invaluable reference to confirm routing of cables, positions of decals, factory markings, etc., even though the team has done similar models many times. At this stage, there is no room for error. It's all about a perfect fit and finish for every piece, from the big components down to the last tiny screw. As the final bolts are tightened and the last pieces of trim snapped into place, the car stands complete once more, gleaming in its new paint, sitting at correct ride height on fresh suspension, interior fully trimmed out, and the engine bay looking like a time capsule. But MCR isn't done yet. They perform an exhaustive final inspection and testing regimen before declaring the project finished. Now that the vehicle is fully assembled, it undergoes the same or better quality control than a new car leaving the factory. Every system is tested. Lights, gauges, wipers, radio, etc. are checked to make sure they function properly. All fluids are filled and topped off. Then it's time to wake the beast. Quality testing and fine-tuning. After months of restoration work, the moment arrives to turn the key and fire up the car. But even though the car looks showroom ready, MCR doesn't simply hand the keys to the owner at first start. Rigorous testing and tuning are essential to ensure the car not only looks like new, but behaves like a new or better car in every way. As MCR advises eager owners, as much as you desperately want to just jump in and go cruising, we first insist on testing everything. This comprehensive shakedown process distinguishes a world-class restoration shop. It's how MCR guarantees that when you do take delivery, your dream car is truly turnkey and sorted out for immediate enjoyment. The initial startup and tuning are often done on MCR's in-house Mustang chassis dynamometer. This is a platform that allows the fully assembled car to be run through its paces under load in a controlled environment. Why a dyno? On a brand new build, it provides a safe way to break in the powertrain and check all systems without the variables of the open road. MCR had already run John's engine on an engine dyno for initial camshaft break-in and base tuning, but that's not the same as running it in the car under real-world conditions. On the chassis dyno, the team can simulate driving. The car can be driven at various speeds and loads while stationary and closely monitor everything: engine temperatures, oil pressure, ignition timing, air-fuel mixture, transmission shifting, rear-end noise, brake operation, and more. The first phase is gentle. They verify that the engine starts easily, idles well, and that there are no fluid leaks or odd noises. Then they gradually run it through different load conditions, like cruising at part throttle, moderate accelerations, etc., while data logging the engine's performance. Finally, once they're confident all is well, They perform a few full-throttle pulls on the dyno. These pulls serve two purposes: to generate horsepower and torque numbers, and to confirm that the engine's tuning is dialed in properly at wide-open throttle. The dyno's controlled setting allows tweaks on the spot. If the carburetor needs a jet change or the ECU needs a fuel map adjustment, it's easy to do and test again immediately. In John's Cuda, after final tuning, the freshly built 340 Ci delivered a strong 225 horsepower and 274 pound-feet of torque at the rear wheels. Actually a bit more than a factory new 340 would have made, thanks to careful tuning and modern parts. More importantly, the dyno runs confirmed that the engine ran cleanly. No smoke, no overheating. The 4-speed transmission shifted smoothly, and the shore grip differential was quiet. Any minor bugs can be ironed out at this stage. It's a lot easier to tighten a hose clamp or adjust a throttle linkage in the shop than out on a busy road. The chassis dyno testing isn't just about the engine either. It's not just the engine being tested, but the transmission and rear end as well, which can only really be function tested under varying load conditions, MCR points out. With the car under load on the dyno, they can listen for drivetrain vibrations, ensure the clutch and gears operate properly, and even bed in the brakes slightly. Once the car passes this simulated road test, it's time for the real thing: road testing. MCR takes the restored car out for multiple test drives on actual streets and highways around their Wisconsin facility. During these road tests, the team evaluates the vehicle's behavior in real-world conditions. Does it track straight? Do the suspension and steering feel tight? Are there any rattles or wind noises? They also exercise the brakes, sometimes performing repeated stops to burnish new pads or shoes, and generally verify that the car handles and stops safely. The goal is to put some initial miles on the car to shake out any remaining issues. MCR will put in the effort to address even minor details: a slight squeak, a misaligned hood latch, a speedometer calibration. All those get attention so that the new owner won't be troubleshooting them later. They want the customer to have the experience of a brand new classic car that's ready for anything. As they put it, the car should be ready not just for a quick trip around the block or a trailer to a show, but for not just cruise night, but even an extended road trip if you just can't tear yourself away from it. Indeed, by the time MCR is done, you could confidently drive your freshly restored muscle car across the country. It's that well sorted. Finally, the big day comes when the fully tested and detailed car is unveiled to its owner. It's hard to overstate the emotion and excitement of this moment. In the case of John's 1970 Cuda, it was the fulfillment of a decades-long dream. It's been quite the journey. John had waited since young adulthood for this exact car, and now the dream he's had since then has been fully realized. The burnt orange 70 Cuda was presented to him not as a refurbished old car, but essentially as the brand new car he had wanted to buy back in the day. In truth, many aspects of the car are better than new. The paint and bodywork are far superior to the factory job from 1970. The panel fit is more precise, and modern coatings like powder on the chassis mean it will stay looking fresh even with regular use. John is effectively experiencing what it would have been like to drive a showroom fresh 70 Cuda off the lot, something most people can only fantasize about. The story of this 1970 Plymouth Cuda's resurrection is more than just one man's dream coming true. It's a testament to what muscle car restorations can do for any classic car enthusiast. From the first conversation and planning survey, through every nut and bolt of the process, MCR's passion and professionalism shine. They treat each project as if it were their own, which in John's case was literally true. Yet every customer receives the same level of dedication and transparent communication. The result? Cars that consistently meet or exceed their owners' expectations and restorations that honor the legacy of these machines. Muscle Car Restorations has spent over 30 years refining this craft, and their full in-house capabilities mean they control quality at every step. Metal fabrication, body and paint, interior upholstery, even final dyno tuning all happen under one roof by a coordinated expert team. That is a rare advantage in the restoration world, and it shows in the finished product. Perhaps you've been inspired by this journey. Now, what about you? Has seeing the process demystified your own restoration questions? Are you picturing your long-lost dream car, wondering if it could also be brought back to life? At MCR, the answer is a resounding yes. Whatever the reason, whatever happened, it's not too late. You can still own the muscle car of your dreams. The opportunity to resurrect a classic and make it your own is within reach, and Muscle Car Restorations is ready to make it happen with you. From rare American muscle cars to European classics or vintage trucks, they apply the same exhaustive care and enthusiasm. In the end, a great restoration is about more than nuts and bolts. It's about rekindling a passion and capturing a moment in time. When you choose muscle car restorations, you're not just getting a service. You're gaining a partner who values your dream as much as you do and has the skill to transform it into rolling reality. Your dream car might be a phone call away.